I'm Elle Mejia, a landlord, investor, and retail leasing professional. I've completed high-level transactions for retailers in markets across 5 continents. On my way to building a multi-million-dollar real estate business, I'm curating advice from women who are killing it across the globe and sharing those conversations with you. You can absolutely run your business, run your household, and run your life without running yourself into the ground. Welcome to This Girl Sells Real Estate. Hello, and welcome to This Girl Sells Real Estate. I am Elle Mejia, and you are tuned into my second minisode, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I am recording this minisode with no planning and no notes because I'm actually going to be trying to talk through a situation that I'm dealing with right now. So for those of you who follow me on any social media, first of all, if you're not following me on any social media, I am quite active across most platforms. So follow me on Instagram. I'm at Elle Does Real Estate. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm actually really active there as well. But if you're following me on Instagram specifically, you'll notice that in my stories yesterday, I was in and around the Hamilton and Stony Creek area. And there were a couple of different reasons for that. But the main reason is that I have about 8,000 square feet of second floor office space in one of our retail centers that I am working to market right now. And I really needed to get an understanding and really dive deep into a market study, because one of the issues that I'm going to be dealing with, besides the issues that are going on with the office market right now, with a lot of people still working from home, but one of the issues that I'm going to be dealing with is the fact that we have a really, really great anchored shopping center right in Hamilton Mountain, but we're surrounded by pretty lower end retail. And so there aren't a lot of comparable properties that justify the net rents that we ask for this second floor office space. So the temptation can often be, when you're in that type of a situation, when you're trying to justify higher rents in a market where your surrounding properties don't really seem to support it, you can kind of be tempted to see if you can, try and fight for a lower rental rate, or go back to your landlord and say, this is impossible, the market this, the market that. But really and truly, you can't make that assumption until you've taken a look at your property and what the properties surrounding you have to offer. So I wanted to get out into the market, and I've done this before, and I am really, really familiar with the market that happens to be around this site, but I also wanted an updated view because I wanted to see what was going on with the tenancies in and around our center with all of the recent lockdowns that had been happening in the area over the last few months. So got out into the market, made sure, of course, to do a site visit on our property, but really tried to focus some attention on the properties that were surrounding our center. And one of the things that I think that you need to do when you're facing a situation where you're needing to justify higher market rents or higher sale prices or whatever it is that you're dealing with in your real estate transaction is not only understanding your opportunity, but understanding the opportunities of those around you. So none of the numbers that I'm going to be quoting right now are specific to my office space or the office spaces that are around me, but I'm just going to be throwing them out as examples. So for example, if you have a shopping center that's across the street from you that's asking for $20 in gross rent numbers, and you're asking for 35, that's a pretty significant gap, especially when you're talking about office spaces that are in, the 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot range. But why is it that your property is able to demand that rate? Well, I can look at the property across the street and I can look at their vacancies. If they're 60% vacant, my property, and this is a real stat, I have no vacancy in the external section of our shopping center. There's no vacancy there. So when I look at another shopping center, I'm looking at what their vacancy rate is, because that'll lower their rents. I'm looking at the visibility of their vacancy. So a vacancy that's kind of tucked away in a corner of their center that isn't as prominent as, a standalone 6,000 square foot box that sits street front, that's going to drive down their rents. And so I need to know that the fact that I'm dealing with a center where our external retail center is 100% leased, that is a big advantage to anyone who's going to want to come into a second floor office space and who's looking to capitalize on that traffic that's coming in. The other thing that I look at besides the occupancy percentage is the existence of an anchor tenant, which is a big thing in the market that I'm working on with this situation specifically. So we're a Walmart anchored center. And in addition to having Walmart as an anchor, we've got some really, really great banners there. We've got the Shoppers Drug Mart, we've got LCBO, we've got the beer store, we've got a Tim Hortons, we've got really big banner players that bring in traffic. We've got a Dollarama. These are all big enough banners that justify the fact that we're bringing customers onto the site that a second floor office tenant is going to be able to benefit from. And when you're looking at the value of that, you can't really compare it to a center that may be $15 lower than you and right across the street or down the street, but that isn't going to be able to drive that traffic because they don't have either the caliber of an anchor tenant that you do, or even the existence of an anchor tenant at all. I'm not even working with comparables where there are other anchor tenants. A lot of the time I'm dealing with smaller commercial and quasi-industrial centers where they don't have an anchor tenant. And so they're not bringing in that traffic. And so a second floor office tenant isn't going to be able to capitalize on that. Another thing that I've been looking at specifically with my property is that, we have the benefit of an abundance of parking because that second floor tenant and any customers or clients that they bring in are going to be able to access the parking pad that services the entire shopping center. And it is a great parking pad. And that is an advantage that I immediately figure out when I'm navigating the small parking areas of some of these commercial centers that are around us. And you notice that immediately because you just, even in terms of doing the market study, I'm realizing the frustration that I'm seeing in having to 3-point turn myself around every single parking structure or trying to find a parking space or seeing even when there are some centers that I was looking at yesterday where they have signs everywhere, no parking here, this parking is for this tenant only. That signals to me that there are some parking issues in that center. So when I have a prospect that comes to me, or when I approach a prospect and I'm trying to justify the net rents that I'm looking for in the second floor office space, and they say to me, well, across the street from you, they're $15 less. Why would I pay so much here? Well, your customers aren't going to be able to find parking over there. Have they figured out the parking situation? They don't have an anchor tenant, I notice. How are you going to bring in traffic to your business? Or are you going to be spending that additional money, that gap in money in marketing and advertising to get people to find where you are because they're not just going to come across you organically? These are questions that you need to be ready to answer and opinions that you're going to need to have based on actual market research. And that's why market information is so crucial. Getting out into the market is so crucial because you'll run into instances where it gives you information that'll arm you in a conversation moving forward with a prospect who wants to compare you to sites that are really just not comparable. So I've got a bit more work to do on my end to make sure that I'm justifying the net rents that we're asking for here. But it's not going to be that difficult. And it's not going to be that difficult because I have the data. And when you have the data behind you, there's no conversation you can't have and no question that you can't answer, not only about your site, but about how that site compares to the sites that are around you too. If you guys have, as always, if you guys have any tips and strategies that I can share in the middle of the situation, like I said, I'm literally right in the midst of working out all of this data right now to make sure that we get a fantastic tenant into that second floor office space and that we're able to, continue to hold up the caliber of the retail center that we have in our Hamilton Mountain Plaza. But if you've got any strategies or tips that you want to share with me as well, I'd love to hear it. But until next time, hopefully the next time I talk to you about that second floor office space, I'll be updating you about a tenancy that I was able to get in at the rents that we wanted and at the rents that were fair, considering the caliber of our center in the market. Thank you so much for joining me on this mini-sode of This Girl Sells Real Estate. Tune in to This Girl Sells Real Estate on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube and on Stitcher, anywhere that you find us. Leave a 5-star review if you can. It really does help me out a lot in the long run. You can tune into conversations that I'm having with phenomenal women in real estate, but you can also tune into these mini-sodes where I'll be sharing some best practices that I come across, or really just kind of working through things like I'm working through today and deals that I'm working through and how I'm navigating the challenges that exist in the different retail markets that I operate in. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will speak to you soon.